Ahoy there, mates. Welcome aboard the VHS Pirate Ship. I'm Captain Adam, and welcome to the show and tell that treats you well. It's Captain Adam's show and tell. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here again. Always nice to talk to you about tapes and all sorts of stuff, and I certainly hope you're doing well out there. I'm doing well in here. It's a nice day out at sea. A little cloudy, but that's okay. Smooth sailing all the way. So it's a good time in here. Plus, it really doesn't matter what the weather's like because I'm below deck right now. That's where my treasure hoard is kept. So I don't typically need to worry about the weather whilst doing these videos. Unless the sea is a little too rough and too angry, then obviously I can't play with my VHS tapes. I have to pay attention. But for now, I'm able to just talk about my tapes. And today, a very special day here on the show and tell. Of course, they're all pretty special, but today I'm going to be showing off all of my Oz VHS pertaining to the Wizard of Oz, of course, and all the offshoots that it had. And it's a very, very expansive universe as far as Oz goes, and certainly Oz tapes. And there are many, many adaptations of the Frank L. Baum book, or L. Frank Baum book, of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Of course, that's where all this stems from. And the world of cinema certainly gave us plenty of different examples of that story. Lots of spin-off things, lots of adaptations, some of them rather loose adaptations from the original book. But, we love them all the same. The Wizard of Oz, what an impactful story on our culture. So we're going to be looking at some of my Oz tapes today. But before we get started, let me ask you, how you doing out there? Are you doing okay? I hope you're doing okay. But maybe you're not. Maybe you got some troubles. Maybe you got some troubled waters you're sailing through right now. Maybe you got some crap happening. You got some crapping, as I like to say. But if that is the case, I would be sorry to hear that, and I certainly believe that things will be getting better for you. You must believe that too. Please always stay positive and try to avoid negativity at all costs. Negativity is not going to do you any good, and worrying about anything isn't going to solve the problem. It's just going to make things worse for you. So please stay positive, look onward and upward, look to God and put your trust in Jesus Christ, and everything is going to be all right. And please believe that anything that happens is all a cog in the wheel of the greater plan and action. And God's got a plan for you. Believe in that, and please stay positive. You must stay positive. Always go into things with a great attitude, and you'll be very, very surprised at the results. So yes, I really hope things are going well for you. But if they're not, they're going to get better. I know that's easy to say, but it is true. Things always move forward, no matter how slow it may seem. They always go forward, and whatever your problem is, that's going to be the formula for that as well. So please stay positive and avoid negativity at all costs. And speaking of that, maybe you ask yourself sometimes, why does Captain Adam get all posi-core on us in these show and tell videos? Well, it's a good question. Here's the thing. I like to spread positivity really any way I can because it's in such short supply. The world is just filled with negativity, especially with social media pretty much taking over everything. It's just so easy to spread just negativity and just harshness and just it's just a lot of darkness is just around there. And it's just my little way of just trying to combat that. And I just like spreading positivity any which way I can, and this is a good way to do so. And I just want everybody to I want everybody just to stay positive. And it's not that hard to do, but in this world that certainly is, and it certainly is difficult. But you don't have to go with the flow of darkness. You can be the shining beacon of light in any situation. So again, I can't say it enough. Please stay positive. And really, what better way to stay positive or to get in a positive sort of mood than to talk about the Wizard of Oz? Probably one of the more pleasant stories in human history. It certainly was a pleasant film. Of course, the original 1939 MGM musical with Judy Garland. It's what can I say about that film? I mean, you talk about a film. Now I don't know. It's hard to say for a lot of films, like popular films, if everybody has seen it. But with The Wizard of Oz, I'm like really, really confident that I think everyone in the world has seen it, and because it just had that kind of that kind of impact on everything. I mean, it was played on television annually all the time back in the day. It still is actually, and just I think everybody has seen the Wizard of Oz, and of course, I do. There was many VHS distributions of that film, and from that film, and that ultimately the book, there was also many other film adaptations, like I said earlier, in many forms, and here I do have it's a rather small collection because believe me, there's a lot of Oz tapes out there that all have different Oz material, and there are multiple distributions of the Wizard of Oz, the 1939 film, and we're going to get into some of that today. I don't have all of the Wizard of Oz distributions on VHS, but I do have a couple, but I do have other Wizard of Oz oriented tapes, and we are going to see them and discuss them today. So, welcome aboard, and I hope you have a great time today, and let's get started. And we're certainly going to start off strong today with, of course, the Wizard of Oz, which would be the second U.S. VHS distribution from MGM Home Video under their Video Kids subsidiary. This is a 1985 distribution, and it comes in a big old kids clamshell there. It's got, what a very nostalgic look this packaging has. I'm not entirely sure how long MGM kept the Video Kids subsidiary, but I do know How the Grinch Stole Christmas was also released under that moniker. So, it must have did pretty well for them. So I don't know. I'd be curious to find out how many other releases they put in this under this subsidiary. There's the classic MGM Home Video silver logo on the cassette there, reflective silver. Yes, very happy to have this. In fact, I think is this the distribution where they changed the black and white back to the original sepia tone? I might have that reversed, where the sepia tone was turned to black and white because they had done that with one of the cuts of the film. They changed the sepia or sepia tone of the non-color parts to black and white for whatever reason. I'm not sure. Maybe it just didn't look good on television. I think they did it for the television, for the broadcast. I'm not sure. I might have that a little mixed up, but this definitely this is the sepia tone. At least I think. Now I'm getting a little confused. But well, anyways, like I said, this is the second U.S. VHS distribution. Now the first U.S. VH distribution, of course, was from MGM Home Video, because MGM had the rights for this film locked down, very, very tightly. So MGM had everything to do with this film all the time. And I believe Turner had bought MGM in the early '90s. So Turner became an MGM thing, or MGM became a Turner thing. I might be getting that a little mixed up, but it's okay. But yes, the first distribution I think was a '79, but it came in the MGM, the book box, the classic book box. Now, truth be told, I did have that at one point, but I had sold it, which I really regret now, especially doing this video showing off my Oz tapes. I certainly could use that now, but yeah, the original US VHS release was in the MGM book box, and it just looked so great. A very, very nostalgic look. You'll have to look it up. Unfortunately, I cannot show it to you on this video because I do not have it, so you'll have to look it up. Now that's pretty pricey. Right now, the listings are probably about an average of $65, but there are quite a few listings for it out there. So it's not that it's rare. It's just, it's one of those just prized VHSs, especially since it's in the book box. Now, when it comes to collecting the MGM book box stuff, always make sure that the box is in at least halfway decent condition, because those boxes, as cool as they were, really weren't all that sturdy, and they were very susceptible to damage in many forms, either tearing or just cracking, breaking, where they just wouldn't be supported anymore. And of course, the book, the cover, which would open up like a book, that seam would always be the first thing to really wear out. So, if you're looking for MGM book box stuff, make sure it's at least in halfway decent condition, because that would do you well. So, yes, I'm very happy to have this one. I had to seek this one out on the high seas of the internet. Did not come across this in the wild. This one at the time, didn't have too many listings for this. I got this probably about 4 years ago. I'm sure that's changed now. But when it comes to Wizard of Oz tapes, I think everybody has there was a mid-90s distribution, and we'll get into that. So let's move on. And we're sticking with the same film, but with different VHS distributions. Here we have a 1988 distribution. You might be saying to yourself, what is this? I've never seen this before. Because in my findings, not a lot of people have seen this particular distribution. As you can see, it looks just unlike any other Wizard of Oz tape there has been at this time, or would be after this time, just because of the red, just the red background there. And as you can see, there's not much of a back of the sleeve. There's no pictures, just a little write-up. This is just a very interesting distribution. You can see there it belonged to somebody, Jay Hadlow. So Jay Hadlow, if you're watching, I have your tape. So thanks a lot for it. And it also has the nice silver reflective MGM cassette label there. Yeah, this is a very interesting distribution. I don't know if it really had a lot of coverage. It might have just been released in certain regions of North America. I've heard some people say that it's a Canadian release, but I'm not too sure if that's the case or not. But yeah, not a lot of people have seen this. At least what I've heard. Maybe you've seen it. It's, everybody has their own experiences. And what I like about this is just the imagery is just so different than anything you've seen. Well, really, especially pertaining to the Wicked Witch. As you can see, she actually has her hair down, which you never see that in the film. However, there are like pre-production screen test photos with Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch with her hair down. It just really changes her look, and that's why this just looks so different, not only because of the red background, also just because the Wicked Witch's hair looks so different, and it just gives the whole thing a different feel. But yes, I'm very, very happy to have this one. I never come across this one in a while. This one was another sought and bought because I didn't even know about this I didn't even know about this distribution until I was looking up different versions of the Wizard of Oz, and then I came across this, and I was just like, what is this? I have to have it, and that's why I got it. And it's also important to note, and I should say this, I had done a video years ago, and by the way, this month marks 5 years of Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship on YouTube, so that's pretty fun. I did a lot of videos in that time, so I know if you subscribe to this channel or just checking this channel out, it might be a little difficult to search all of my older stuff because I do have so much material. But it is worth the dig. At least I hope it is, and I certainly would appreciate you going through my older material because it is quite different than the show and tell videos. As I have said before on other show and tell videos, my other stuff is rather verbose, and they're actual like film reviews and VHS history. It's fun stuff. And so anyways, one of my first videos was called The Odyssey of Oz Tapes, where I explore not just the history of the Wizard of Oz, but all of the VHS distributions of that film and all the other Oz-related films that there's been, and of course the VHS history that comes with that. So it's a very interesting video. At least, I was pretty proud of it. The thing is, I think it was my sixth video, so I didn't really know what I was doing. It's arguable if I do now, but you can tell like my voice just sounds very, very low. Well, I know it's kind of low on this one as well, but it seems like I was afraid of the microphone back then, and like I took a bunch of Robitussin and was kind of sleepy. Oh, I hadn't found my voice yet, as they say. So yeah, if you go back and watch that video, I have the link in the description if you like. It's a fun video, but it is one of my first videos, so it is rather amateur hour, I guess you could say, but at least I think so. But anyway, yeah, please check that out. That's a very all-encompassing Oz adventure, the Odyssey of Oz tapes. Link will be in the description. So yes, check out the link in the description, and if you do and you watch that video, you'll say, well, gosh, there certainly were a lot of VHS stuff pertaining to Oz, and there certainly were. And when you watch this video, you'll notice that I do have quite a few Oz-related tapes, but not nearly as many as there existed, and I do hope to maybe one day find the rest of the Oz stuff that's out there on VHS. But the problem is, a lot of that stuff gets pretty pricey and is rather rare, so definitely check out that video for more info on that very topic. And I'm happy for the Oz stuff I have. I mean, Like I said, one day maybe I will get all the Oz stuff, but right now I'm not too concerned because I'm just rather happy with what I have. And but anyways, back to this distribution. Yes, 1988. It's a Turner Home Video subsidiary thing with MGM Home Video, so it's still MGM, of course. A year later, in 1989, the Wizard of Oz would be celebrating its 50th anniversary, and of course, with that, it was re-released on VHS in a rather, like, I don't know if it was a special edition. I think it might have been like remastered in some form. But the sleeve, it was a normal cardboard sleeve, and the cover opened up and held a little booklet that gave you little tidbits about the movie and the production of the movie and all this stuff. So that was a pretty cool tape to have. And I know I don't have that one particularly, though I do come across it in the wild a lot. But the problem is, well, it's got moving parts. It's got that opening flap that contains the booklet. And anytime something has moving parts, the risk is greater that something's going to be broken. And usually the sleeve is not in that good a condition. And of course, the booklet is always missing. Now, you can find that particular, the 1989 distribution online with the booklet, but I'm pretty sure the prices might be up there a little bit. But who knows? Check it out yourself if you wanted to get that. The thing is, you might already have it because when the 50th anniversary of Wizard of Oz rolled around, it was almost like if your family didn't have the Wizard of Oz on VHS, they would at that time because they really pushed that tape, and it was everywhere. So, but oddly enough, I don't have it. Maybe one day I'll get it. But anyways, hey, hold on. Before I move on, then I think it was in 93, 94, 95, maybe there was another distribution with just a normal cardboard sleeve, and I think that was a rather common one as well. I actually have that one somewhere, but I'll be danged if I can find it anywhere. It's somewhere beneath the many mounds of my treasure piles. So yeah, I do have that one, and I wish I could show it to you again, but I don't have. I can't find it. Oh, how unprofessional of me. So anyways, hey, let's get going. And oh man, let's move on to the movie that would change how everybody viewed Oz with Return to Oz. One of the most dark family movies of the 80s, and it certainly was unintentional. It just sort of happened to be just a really, really dark movie, so much so that it did terribly in theaters because parents would take their kids to go see this thinking it was a happy and bright musical like the first film was, only to find out that it's filled with just terror, and of course they would just walk out of the theater and wouldn't finish the film. So, that's on them. That's their loss, really. And of course, word got around that this movie was not for kids, even though it is. It's just a rather dark film. And of course, it snowballed from there. But this movie has tremendous cult following now, and it has for a very long time. So yeah, Return to Oz, a very, very beloved film, but certainly different than The Wizard of Oz. The imagery is just very, very dark, contrasted to the first film. So it's very interesting, and it's debatable that this is even a sequel. It's just sort of like another Oz adaptation. I know that the title sort of it makes it seem like a sequel, Return to Oz, but in reality, it's a combination of two of the Oz books. The Land of Oz, and is it Ozma of Oz? I can't remember. I do cover that in the video I was talking about. So again, check the description for the link to that video. There's lots of information in that video. But yeah, Return to Oz. I mean, I've always loved this film. I mean, who really doesn't? It's a really great film. It's it's another upon the list of the just dark kids movies of the 80s, because that was a rather big thing. I mean, think of all the movies that if you're an 80s kid or a late 70s kid or whatever, the movies you grew up with, just think about, like, that would just never work nowadays, because what do we have? You had the Dark Crystal, you had the Labyrinth, you had the Secret of Nim, you had Gremlins, for heaven's sakes. Gremlins was supposed to be like a kid's family movie, for heaven's sakes, and that is it's a borderline horror movie. Just Never-Ending Story. That's another one that's like really, really dark. In fact, I was afraid of it when I first watched it as a very little kid, and I'm sure a lot of kids felt the same way. And then Return to Oz is on that list of just like dark family movies of the 80s. It was a different time. Those times are never coming back. They don't make family movies like that anymore. They never will again. So yeah, happy to have Return to Oz. Every VHS collector, I think, should have Return to Oz. in their collection. Now, this Return to Oz did have multiple distributions. This one is I believe, the final U.S. VHS distribution. It was released in 1999 by Anchor Bay, and of course the famous Anchor Bay home video clamshell. Anchor Bay in the late 90s through 97 to 99, Anchor Bay was like the king of home video releases when it came to like horror films and like, you know, films like this, just like cult classic films. I know, like in that time frame, you know, Anchor Bay released a bunch of the Hammer horror films that until that time didn't really get VHS distributions. A lot of the films that they released didn't. So yeah, if you're a horror fan, Anchor Bay home video was certainly for you at that time, because like I said, they released a lot of Hammer horror films. And some of those Hammer horror films had not gotten a VHS release before then, so that's pretty cool. He did a lot of Argento stuff. He did a lot of what else did he do? Of course, he released well, not he, but Anchor Bay released Army of Darkness in a clamshell special edition clamshell. See, Anchor Bay was just really on the pulse of the horror fan back in the day, and or just a fan of any kind of like dark cinema or any just cult classic. So yeah, Anchor Bay, good stuff. Now, the original US VHS distribution of Return to Oz was from Walt Disney Home Video from 1985. That one, very, very hard to track down, and of course it goes for pretty high prices, so I do not have that one. But it is the one that my family had rented when we were kids, when it first came out. So that one does have the most nostalgia to me, but I'm not going to have it because, I mean, these prices are just too high, and I'm just not doing that. I have this distribution. That's good enough for me. And of course, it was released again, I think in 95 in a normal cardboard sleeve. I did have that distribution at one time, but it had long been lost, so I had to get this distribution instead. So happy to have this. Love Return to Oz. I'm sure you do too. So let's move on. Now, when it comes to adaptations of The Wizard of Oz, there's probably no better example than The Wiz, based on a 1974 Broadway musical. This 1978 film would bring the concept of The Wizard of Oz into more modern times, well, at least modern, I guess, for the 70s, but you know what I mean. Yeah, so definitely it's set in a cityscape as opposed to like a countryside. It's a very well done adaptation. I'm sure you've seen this. If you haven't seen it, I mean, you got to see it. It's just a very, very fun movie. Lots of great music in it. Of course, it's a musical, as you might have guessed, since it is based on a Broadway musical. And this has a lot of charming songs in it, most of which were written by Quincy Jones. And of course, this famously stars Michael Jackson as the Scarecrow. Very, very well done casting. And Nipsey Russell as the Tin Man, or Tin Barker, I suppose he is. And of course, Diana Ross as Dorothy. It's a fun movie. I remember I didn't really watch this as a kid. I watched this as a teenager. At least I've been told I've seen this as a kid, but I was too young to remember. And perhaps it's not really the best thing for a kid to watch, just because there's nothing really bad in it. It's just it does get kind of dark, and it just doesn't have a kid movie feel to it. It's just sort of, it is what it is. I mean, I think it's more geared towards adults, certainly adults that like Broadway musicals, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And this distribution is interesting because, as you can see, it's got that original MCA Video Cassette Incorporated rainbow logo on the case, which means that the case is indeed the early one. And as you can see, the early MCA home videos always put their date right on the spine, which made it very easy to date. This is a 1981 distribution. However, as we're getting ready to see, at least the sleeve is the 1981 distribution. Let's crack open the tape here, and as you can see right away, it's got the mid-80s MCA home video logo, so automatically something is not right with this. And it turns out this indeed is not the 81 distribution. This is the 84 distribution, and they just reused the same sleeve, I suppose, as a cost-cutting measure. D&J Video Junction, X-Rental there from D&J Video Junction. No address, but it's got a 717 area code, so this was out of Pennsylvania. Yeah, always love X Rentals, because you never know what video store they came from. I always like it when they include the label of the particular video store, and you always see all the different names of all these video stores from around the country. It's very, very interesting little pieces of history. So definitely happy to have this one. It took me a while to obtain this one. It's one of those movies where I saw it a bunch when I was a teenager because it was on television. I taped it off television, so I had it on just a home recording version of this. So I watched it many times, and then I just sort of drifted away from my immediate memory until I was like, of all the tapes I should have in my collection, The Wiz is definitely on top of the list. So I went ahead and salted out and bought it. It was a salt and bought. You're not really going to find this in a while, I don't think. If you do, good luck. Good hunting to you. But this is. I don't want to say it's rare, but it's just one of those things you just don't find in the wild, at least not very, very often. I've never seen it at all. If I had seen it in the wild, I would have gotten it. So I had to seek this one out on the high seas of internet shopping, and I'm certainly happy to have it. There are lots of listings for this, varying price ranges. I mean, I think it averages about $10. Maybe the $7 to $10 range, so it's not too bad. And of course, there's a variety of different distributions, year of distribution. I think they released it again in the mid '90s. There might even be a later one than that. So I'm not too entirely sure. So if you want this, not too hard to obtain. So go ahead and take the plunge. I think everybody should have this movie in their VHS collection, or at least everybody should have watched this movie because it is a very well done adaptation of The Wizard of Oz. And of course, what's funny is you don't know it until you see him, of course, but Richard Pryor is in this as well, so it's a fun movie. So definitely check it out. One of my favorite Wizard of Oz adaptations, The Wiz. And let's get going. Not all Oz material is created equal. Sometimes you have films like this, Under the Rainbow. Very underrated film, very underappreciated film, very just sort of forgotten about film. It's about the production of the 1939 MGM Wizard of Oz film. Stars Chevy Chase and I almost said Cary Grant. Carrie Fisher. It's a very interesting movie. It has to do with World War II. There's like spies involved. It's a comedy, and it gets really out of hand real quick. It's just a very it's a fun movie, very interesting movie, very loaded movie. I certainly recommend looking this one up and watching it because I'm sure you more than likely haven't heard of this. A lot of people haven't. I know I didn't hear about this film until about a couple years ago, and then I had to seek out the VHS and buy it. It wasn't too expensive at the time, but that doesn't mean it's not expensive now. So, very early Warner Home Video release. It's not any Warner Home Video clamshell. It's a normal cardboard sleeve, but it is an early Warner Home Video release. You can always tell by that the color. Well, it's only one color in it, I guess, but the color cassette label. It's got the Warner Brothers logo in color, and the early ones always did that. This is a very interesting film. I love having it. Billy Barty's in it, and I always say it's not a party until you got Billy Barty, and I'm always happy to see Billy Barty in films. This is a 1989 Warner Home Video distribution, so it was well past the era of the Warner Home Video clamshell. I wonder if there is a clamshell version of this. I'll have to look that up. I know that the original release date says 81 from Orion Pictures, so there might be a clamshell version of this. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. I think I will as soon as I'm done with this video. If you want to talk about movies that nobody talks about, as I mentioned earlier in this little segment here, this is definitely should be on top of the list because it's a Chevy Chase movie that just nobody seems to really know about, and it was early, so it was almost peak Chevy Chase. Well, not really peak Chevy Chase, but Chevy Chase was certainly on the rise at this time. So I mean, Chevy Chase definitely got a lot of attention, and that wouldn't stop throughout the 80s. So this is one of his earlier works that really should get more attention than it does, especially if you're an Oz fan. And $9.88 there. That's a weird, very, very specific price. So this is a previously viewed copy, obviously, but As far as where it's from, what store it was from, I don't know. All it has is that price tag on it, with that very, very oddly specific price of $9.88. So yeah, Under the Rainbow, certainly happy to have this one. Any Oz fan needs to have this one in their collection immediately. So yeah, speaking of immediately, let's move on. The Wizard of Oz would certainly become part of the animated cinema landscape, and there were lots of animated features about the Wizard of Oz, all starting with this one, simply called Wizard of Oz. It was in 1933, a little animated short. So it predates the MGM movie by 6 years. So yeah, that's interesting. If you haven't seen this, don't expect a good time with this one. I don't want to be harsh, but this is a little weird. Certainly, very, very, very loosely based on the book. There's no Cowardly Lion in it. The Wizard of Oz. You know what? I really can't explain it. Because it is just a very, very strange adaptation, and of course it's a public domain cartoon. So this tape is exactly what you think it is. It is one of those that you find at like Kmart back in the day for like $1 or $2. It's a very, very poor quality tape, public domain cartoon cavalcade tape, as I call them. And I always get a kick out of those because they're just fun to watch, because the cartoons are just long forgotten about. A lot of them are rather offensive, and a lot of them just because of the time they were made, and nobody really paid any attention to them, and they just released them. And some of those cartoon cavalcades, I've talked about this many times, some of them used licensed characters like Bugs Bunny or Porky Pig, but they didn't get permission from Warner Brothers or whoever to use the character, but they would use that character in a certain cartoon to lead off their videotape, and the rest of the videotape would be just public domain stuff. So they're fun because most of the time they're unlicensed. If they have a licensed character in them, or they feature them, they did not get permission to use it, so they're like pirate tapes almost. So that was fun. I mean, back then the world of VHS distribution rights and licensing rights was kind of the Wild West. So they almost obviously they got away with them, but it was it was a bit sticky, and it's just kind of weird. A lot of legal loopholes there, and obviously those loopholes have been long since cinched up. So yeah, cartoon cavalcade tapes are always fun. Plus, you never know really how many there were, because there were just so many different ones, and just in varying degrees. And this is one of them. Happy to have this one. Certainly just had to get it. And then when I watched it, I was like, oh, well, that's 7 minutes I'm never getting back. I don't like to be negative, as you know. I would say it is entertaining, but certainly do not be expecting a good adaptation of The Wizard of Oz. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's just a different adaptation. But there are better ones out there. And when it comes to animated Wizard of Oz features, I've noticed that they're not really all that good. I haven't really seen a decent one yet. That's just how the cookie crumbles, I suppose. And that's just my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion on things. I know I've seen a variety of Wizard of Oz animated features, and I just wasn't too impressed with them. But that's that's okay. I guess I'm not the audience. I mean, because they're mainly geared towards kids if they're cartoons. I mean, I know that's not always necessarily true, but in the case of the Wizard of Oz animated features, that certainly is true. So it's not really for me. I'm not the demographic they were going for. So no wonder I'm not satisfied with them. This particular VHS is a 1993 Diamond Entertainment Corporation distribution, and if you haven't heard of them, do not feel bad. They certainly were a fly-by-night third-tier distributor that mainly focused on what they call public domain cartoons, and we'll take a look at the back of the sleeve here. DEC on the side there. Let's turn it around and see what it has to say about the cartoons that they use for their feature video cassettes. Right down there it says, cartoons used by cartoon favorites are public domain products and are not licensed nor authorized by the original copyright owners. So they kind of say it right there. They're not authorized by the original copyright owners, and it says they feature stuff like Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, Popeye. And now, most of that stuff was not public domain, regardless of what they said. So yeah, it's a little tricky, isn't it? That's what I'm talking about. It gets a little a lot of lawyer baseball going on there, and I think they just went ahead and released them without permission and nobody really noticed. I mean, why would you? You know what I mean? Like, I guess they got away with it. So the thing with the cartoon cavalcade stuff is a lot of them will just feature like one Bugs Bunny cartoon, and the rest would be like a bunch of weird 1930s cartoons that are public domain. And that's not to say some of these cartoon cavalcade distributors would sometimes get a distribution license. Very, very like almost like a temporary one, I suppose you'd say, a very small one. I know, what's the one distribution of? Oh, I can't think of it now, but there was one that was a third tier, but it was a pretty high third tier, if that makes any sense. Pretty top of the food chain third tier, but they would get permission to use certain cartoons, but that was it. Like the only one, that's it, and you can never do it again. So they would allow it to be gotten away with sometimes, but most of these cartoon cavalcade distribution companies would not get permission despite what they say. So that's pretty fun. I wonder how many distributions exist of this particular cartoon. It is rather hard to figure that out because they just aren't documented, because why would they? They're bargain basement tapes. That's what they were made to be, economical value for your family, and that's what they are. Nobody ever paid attention to these tapes, really, and it's sad because they are pretty fun. But yeah, so check this out. This cartoon's on YouTube. You can look it up. You don't have to buy the tape. Don't be like I did and buy this tape because it's not worth it. If you're a Wizard of Oz collector, then sure, I guess it is worth it. But you can watch this cartoon and see for yourself if you like it. If you have seen this cartoon, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. It's definitely a weird adaptation of the story. And speaking of animated features, let's continue in that same vein and let's move on. Wizard of Oz animated features would not shy away from the world of anime, or at least anime style cartoons, I suppose you could say, because it's not exactly anime. But however, this particular feature is from Toho Studios from 1981, the Wizard of Oz animated film. This one isn't too bad. It's it's as far as loose adaptations go, it's not all that loose, but there are some bits that are a bit strange that you might wonder why they're in there. As you can see, the Wicked Witch is certainly book accurate, as she has her eye patch, and Dorothy is book accurate as well, as she had blonde hair in the original book as opposed to brunette that the movie and pretty much every film adaptation puts her as. So that's interesting that they actually paid attention to the character descriptions. Yeah, I'm sorry, 1982 from Toho Productions. This is a 1991 Paramount Home Video distribution. Now, since it is Paramount, is it really a 1991, or what is it? Does the tape say something different? No, it doesn't. It is a 1991 because as I've talked on the show before about Paramount Home Video and how tricksy they can be with their dates. The sleeve will say one thing, but the tape will say something completely different, and it's a little confusing to chronicle this stuff. If you're a VHS collector, Paramount Home Video is very frustrating, but they're not the only distribution company to do that. As we saw, the MCA did it with The Wiz, and I'm sure they've done it with other releases as well, and just a lot of other home video distributors did that sort of thing. Media Entertainment, certainly a culprit when it came to doing that, using one sleeve, but putting a newer distribution in the old sleeve, which makes it confusing. So my tip is, for everybody out there, my tip will always be, if you're a VHS collector, always look at the cassette first for the date. That is what you need to know. The sleeve can say anything it wants. The cassette is where it's at. That is the actual date. So so definitely, you should check this out. It's not exactly a short animated feature. It is rather long as far as animated features go, and it is it's not terrible. It's, like I said, it's kind of it's rather loosely based, but not too loose. You might get a kick out of this. It's got some pretty catchy songs in it, like "It's a Wizard of a Day." I mean, you have to watch it. It's I think the girl who played Annie in the Annie film, I can't remember the actress's name, but she voices Dorothy in this, so that's pretty interesting. Definitely check this out. It's worth a watch. I think it's on YouTube for free. I'm not entirely sure if that's true anymore, but definitely check it out. And this particular VHS, I got it probably about 3 years ago, and I haven't checked any listings since, so I don't know what the rarity is nowadays. I know when I first got this, I think it was about like $10. Like, so it's not terrible. I don't know what it is now, but yeah, you should check this out if you're an Oz fan, especially if you're a Toho Studios fan. You'll get a kick out of this production. So yeah, I like having this. Thrilled that it's an actual. The date is actually what it says it is, and the sleeve is not different than the cassette. I always appreciate that. So yeah, happy to have this one. And you know what? Hey, let's move on. Like I said earlier, there were many animated film adaptations of The Wizard of Oz, to the point where it does get rather confusing, especially now considering both of these tapes are the same animated feature, just different distributions. But what makes it even more strange is both of these distributions, however different they are from the same year, which is rather odd. And so this one, I can't remember which one this is. I don't think it's the one. This is a 1992 Golden Film home video distribution. A bit of the. And this one has the 1992 Sony Kids Entertainment distribution. So, but it's the same thing. And as I was saying earlier, there was an animated feature, Wizard of Oz, that had Liza Minnelli as the voice of Dorothy, but I do not believe this one is that one, because it doesn't say at all. It would say that, of course. You should. That's like your top star is Liza Minnelli. Why wouldn't you put that in the description on the back of the box? But wow, look at that. That is a very, very just cheaply done cassette label. Not much to that one at all. I think the Golden Video or whatever it was, that one was a bit of a budget release, so they didn't really put too much effort into the layout design. But hey, that's okay. I understand. So yeah, you know what? It would be helpful to refer to the video that I talked about earlier in this video, the Odyssey of Oz tapes, because I do go into great detail about the history of the animated Wizard of Oz features, and so I was a little bit better prepared in that video than I am in this one. So again, check the link in the description below to check out that video. I certainly would appreciate it. So yes, two different distributions of the same animated Wizard of Oz film, and I think I got these a couple years ago, and I think what it was is I believed I was getting different animated features for my Wizard of Oz tape collection, but when I actually got them, I realized that I was sorely mistaken, because they are the same animated feature. But that's okay. That's just, sometimes that's how it goes. But it is weird that they're the same year but different distributors. That's kind of a strange thing. It doesn't really happen all that often. So yeah, two 1992 VHS distributions from two different VHS distributors of the same film. So that's pretty fun, and that's really all I'm going to say about these. And let's move on. Yeah, the animated world of the Wizard of Oz adaptations gets pretty convoluted, and here we have a good example with The Lion of Oz, one I've never heard of. I came across this in a thrift store many moons ago, and it wasn't 50 cents. Actually, I think this was only a quarter when I got it. Even though the price tag says 50 cents there. But this one's weird because it is kind of a big deal. It had the voices of Tim Curry, Dom DeLuise, Bobcat Goldthwait, Kathy Griffin. It's an origin story of how the lion became part of Oz. And to be honest with you, I haven't watched this one yet. My patience for animated films isn't very large, so I don't really dig animated stuff anymore. This is a 2000 film, and it's a 2000 Sony Wonder home video distribution. Just an interesting find. Just had to get it just because. And I really, with the original Oz books, there were many of them. There was The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and there was Land of Oz, and it goes on down the line. The titles of the books always refer to a certain character. For the most part, there's the Scarecrow of Oz, the Tin Man of Oz, but there was never a Lion of Oz or Cowardly Lion of Oz, and I always wondered why that was. At least to my knowledge, there wasn't. At least for the original books, there wasn't. But so this one, I guess, sort of corrects that problem, and they just said, hey, we're going to make our own with the Lion of Oz, and that's sort of what this is. It's an origin story of how the lion came to Oz and whatever, all the antics that happened because of that. So I might have to watch this sometime. I don't know. It's only 75 minutes long, so it wouldn't be too big of a deal to watch it, even if it is a bit crap, which it might be, I'm not sure, but I don't like to be negative, and I don't want to assume that it is. So maybe one day I will watch this, but it is not this day, so I should say. But it definitely is a nice addition to my Oz tape collection. Very happy to have this. Like I said, didn't know it existed until I saw it in the thrift store, and I said, hey, guess what my VHS shelf needs? This movie. So, and of course, the price was right. Little hard to say no when it's almost free. A quarter is very, very cheap, and like, you know, as you know, that was probably about 15 years ago, and VHS thrift prices back then were very, 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 very pleasing at usually just a quarter or 50 cents a pop, and the thrift stores actually had VHS back then, which always makes it fun for the hunt. So yeah, and speaking of fun, I hope you had fun today, and that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Show and Tell here on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship. I certainly appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time, and I hope you do check out the Odyssey of Oz tapes. The link is in the description, as I've said numerous times on this particular video. I do recommend you watch it. It is a fun time, and I certainly was more prepared in that video than I am in this video, as I had said. So that's a pretty fun time. So yes, again, thank you for joining me today. It's always nice to talk to you. I certainly hope you're doing well out there. And like I said earlier, if you're not, please keep going. Please do not get discouraged. Always look onward and upward. Look to God and put your trust in Jesus Christ, and everything is going to be all right. Things are going to work out for you, no matter how long it takes. Everything always moves forward. It might be slow, but it's going forward. So please hang in there, as cheesy as that sounds, but it's still good advice nonetheless. And please note there's people behind the scenes rooting for you, cheering for you, praying for you. Hey, I'm one of them. I'm here for you. This is your old buddy Captain Adam, reminding you to stay positive and keep the faith. And I want you to be well and do well. And please be generous, be brave, be kind. And I'll see you next time only on... and take care out there. Let me start over again. Yes, please be generous, be kind, be brave, and take care out there. And I'll see you next time only on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship. Goodbye, and God bless.